Hello and welcome to our Masterclass. Today we're going to be talking about what goes on behind the scenes at international book fairs. My name's Lindsay Jones. I'm the CEO of DropCap. I'm really happy to have everyone with me here today. As we go through the presentation, please feel free to drop any questions or comments you have into the chat box. There'll be some time at the end, and I will try to address as many questions as possible. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. All right, so the first question, what exactly are international book fairs? This is a great question, just 101. What actually are these things? Why are they important? International book fairs are gatherings of the publishing industry. These take place throughout the year, typically in the spring and fall, where book trade professionals meet face-to-face to conduct business. So rights licensing is a major focus of these fairs. There's a few that are kind of the big ones. We have Frankfurt Book Fair in the fall, which we'll be talking about more today. The Frankfurt Book Fair received over 115,000 trade visitors last year. That's just trade visitors. There was another about 100K visitors that were members of the public that weren't part of the profession. So that by far is the biggest book fair of the year, one of the most important. It's one of the book fairs where almost everyone in the industry attends, and it has over 6,000 exhibitors. So that's the time of year that a lot of rights buying and selling takes place, and this is where it's happening. We also have the London Book Fair. This takes place in the spring. It gets over 30,000 visitors. And then the other one I'll highlight is the Bologna Book Fair. This takes place in the spring, but it's specifically for children's books. And that has about the same attendance as the London Book Fair. For us here at DropCap, we typically focus on our adult titles at the London Book Fair and then our children's titles at the Bologna Book Fair, since they kind of occur very close together, usually within a few weeks of each other. So as you can see from these pictures, there's a lot of people there. There's a lot of booths. The hallways are typically packed, and you're walking down aisles that are just lined with exhibitors and people showing books. There's a lot to take in, and it's hard to stand out when you're one of thousands of exhibitors. So that's what DropCap helps with, and we're going to talk a bit more about that. So first, how are rights bought and sold? The first way is for exhibitors to pay for a booth to display their books at the book fair. And typically when an exhibitor has a booth, this is usually a publisher, and they have their books with them and they pre-book meetings with their network of rights buyers. And they may meet with hundreds of rights buyers throughout the course of the fair to pitch them on the books that they're showcasing in the booth. Another way that we connect with rights buyers during the fair is walk-in traffic. So having a booth lets an exhibitor, whether that's a publisher or an agency like us, showcase the books and attract people walking by. As you saw from the previous pictures, there's hundreds of them every day, thousands of them actually. And a nice cover can attract the notice of a rights buyer that doesn't necessarily have a meeting, but will step into the booth and browse and then talk with someone who's in the booth about the availability of the book, and they may ask to see it later. And then the other way that rights are bought and sold, this is important, is in the Rights Center. So every major book fair has an area called the Rights Center. As you can see from the photo here, there's many, many tables. This is just a small fraction of them. And agents book just a table. They typically are pitching rights buyers from a catalog and may have a few of their front list titles on hand to show, but they're not using that whole big booth to show off their clients' books. This is how we participate in the London Book Fair, which is, as you know, a bit smaller than Frankfurt. And it can be very effective, but you lose that important walk-in traffic when you go to the book fair just in the Rights Center. The other important thing to know about the Rights Center is that only trade professionals can enter the Rights Center. So if you were to attend as an author, you typically can't get into that area. It's very restricted. So what exactly are rights buyers looking for? When we're showing the books to the rights buyers during our meetings at a book fair, obviously an eye-catching cover is going to be one of the first things that makes them point to it and say, I want to see that one. Other things that they're looking for are topics that are going to fit their market. These trends can change, year to year. They're different depending on where the rights buyer is coming from. Sometimes they're looking for very, very specific things. Sometimes they want something a little bit more broad, but the common theme is that the topics are universal. They can apply to many different people in many different walks of life. They're not just solely focused on US. So the example I always like to use is that if your book is about the US healthcare system, it's probably not going to do well internationally. So that might be one that you do not send to a book fair. But if your book is about business or self-help, or is a children's book, is talking about wellness, those are topics that are popular all over the world and can do really well. And the rights buyers that we meet with, when we sit down with them, we say, okay, what types of books are working well in your market right now? And then we're going to tailor our meeting based on what they say is working well and what they're looking for. We're going to be pulling books off of the shelf to show them that fit those topics, and they're going to be looking at those books during the course of the meeting. Typically, both the agent or the editor and us and the person we're meeting with are going to be taking notes about what books they'd like us to follow up with them after the fair and send them a PDF. So throughout the course of the meeting, they might look at 20, 30, or 40 books, and then they might say, I only am interested in seeing 5 of these after the fair. And that's kind of how every meeting goes. And we're doing those back to back, over 100 of them throughout the course of the fair. And we're really, in a short amount of time, trying to quickly determine what types of books this rights buyer is going to be most interested in. And then we're going to follow up with them after the book fair in more detail with a PDF of the book to review. Other things the rights buyers are looking for are domestic success, like sales, awards, endorsements. You don't need to be a huge bestseller, but they want to see some sort of evidence of audience building. They want to see what your credentials or background are as an author. They're looking for many different things that suggest the book is going to perform well. They're making an investment in that book when they're licensing it. So the book fair gives them the opportunity to actually see that in person. And then us as the agent, we're kind of filling in those details about what types of success the book has seen. So why do we exhibit in person? In the age of Zoom, we could just have meetings. We have a whole platform, obviously, that we use to pitch books to our rights buyers throughout the year. So what is the point of still attending book fairs? Obviously, the attendance is, hundreds of thousands of people, so we're all still doing it. The reason is that buyers can get a better feel for the size and the quality of the books when they see them in person. We've often been surprised after seeing a book on screen for several months. When we actually get the physical copy in our hands at the book fair, sometimes it's much smaller than we expected. Sometimes it's much bigger, and that can actually impact how we pitch it, to whom we pitch it, and how it's received. When you look at a screen and say, okay, that's the trim size and that's how many pages the book has, you don't necessarily compute it in the same way that you do when you're actually picking up the book and feeling it. Illustrations and graphics are definitely more eye-catching when you see the physical book in your hands. It's easier for our rights buyers to assess the quality of the illustrations. It just doesn't compare to seeing, a beautiful full-color children's book on the screen versus holding it in your hands. Books that a buyer can touch and feel, they're going to remember that book better when they go back to their editorial teams and say, these are the books that we're considering based on what was pitched to us at the book fair. And when they're making their acquisition decisions, they're going to say, oh yeah, I remember that one. That one, looked and felt really nice. And then finally, a face-to-face pitch from a trusted agent is always going to be more impactful than conducting business behind a screen. Obviously, we do that all throughout the year because we're licensing books regardless of whether a book fair is going on. But it's really important for us to maintain those face-to-face relationships. Our agents have spent over 25 years each working in this industry. They know the people that they're meeting with, and those people trust them when they pitch a book and say, I think this would work well for you. So that's always going to have a big impact. So how is DropCap different? This is a really great question that I like to address because we are doing things a little bit differently from other agencies. Like I mentioned at the beginning, many agents are getting a table in the Rights Center. We do that as well, so there's nothing wrong with that. But by having a booth at the book fair, having a place where we can capture walk-in traffic and show more than just a few select titles, we find that brings in a lot more business for us, and we're able to plant the seeds for a lot more licensing for the rest of the year when we have those books in hand versus when we're just at a table in the Rights Center. So having that booth is really important. Usually it's just publishers that have booths. It's very few, if any, agencies have booths. So we're unique in that way. Our platform, DropCap Marketplace, as you can see here in the picture, provides all of the information we need at our fingertips. So the publishing industry in general and rights licensing specifically is still a little archaic. Many agents are still pitching books, even at book fairs, out of catalogs. And sometimes they have to flip through, a bunch of pages to see if rights are available in a certain language. And we have all of that information in our platform. So we're able to look it up on our computers while we're in a meeting with someone immediately and know what rights have been sold for that book, any special information like awards or endorsements it's received. We can see all of that right away, and that helps us with pitching and with making the case and being persuasive with our rights buyers about why they should choose this book among the hundreds of books they're going to see that day. Our agents have built trusted relationships with our buyers over decades. So sometimes I talk to a lot of authors that maybe tried sending their book to a book fair with companies like Combined Book Exhibit or others where it's being displayed at the fair, but there's no proactive pitching. There's no relationship building going on. No one is actually there to sell their book to rights buyers. It's just sitting on a shelf. So it's very important that when we bring books to book fairs, we're taking those books down off of the shelf all the time and presenting them to our buyers who trust us. And when we say this book would be a good fit for you, they're going to write that down and say, okay, I want to know more. And to that end, we typically pre-book over 100 meetings when we're preparing for the book fair. We've already started booking meetings. Our two of our agents, their Wednesdays and Thursdays are almost completely full already, and we're only in July. So we pre-book those meetings, and then we typically have 50 or more unbooked meetings. So people who were passing by, and we have, an impromptu sit down with them. That's typically my job. So we walk away from the fair usually with over 150 individual half-hour meetings that our team has conducted. And each of those meetings results in maybe 5, 10, or 20 books that individual rights buyer wants to learn more about after the fair. So I'm going to talk about the cost and what's included when you go to the book fair with DropCap. So for 1 to 2 books, we're looking at $6.99. This is for authors who, maybe you just have one book that you want to send, but sometimes it's a duology or you have a couple books in a series. We wanted to make that affordable if you do have more than one. For 3 to 6 books, we're at $13.99. 7 to 12 books, that would be 2 shelves on a panel, is $24.99. And then if you do have up to 24 books, we can do a full panel as part of our booth. This is what a lot of our publishers do. And it has your company logo at the top of the panel. So we include your branding, and that's $39.99. When you exhibit with us, your books are being displayed in our booth for us to pitch and for our buyers to review during the meetings. You're getting a dedicated page in one of our rights guides. So a rights guide, just to explain that briefly, I want to be cognizant of everyone's time, is a PDF that we create This is kind of the old school way of doing things. It's like a catalog that's distributed to over 2,700 of our rights buyers. The reason we do that, in addition to our platform and our meetings and our virtual booth, is because we're trying to meet all of our rights buyers where they're at, and the ones that are still very interested in seeing books through that catalog medium, we want to make sure we have an answer for them as well. So your book will be in our rights guide. Your book will be featured in our virtual book fair booth. So this is what we use to present books when we meet with people over Zoom. We typically have several Zoom meetings before and after the book fair with people who were not able to attend in person. And we're using that during the fair to help present as well when we're pulling up things like your awards and other information about your book. We have a fantastic content team. I love our marketers. They do an amazing job of social media promotion before, during, and after the book fair. And you'll receive a post-fair media kit for your own promotional use that includes photos of your book at the book fair, our social media efforts, and information about the fair, like how many attendees and how many people looked at your book. And then one thing I want to mention that's really important is that if you do choose to attend the book fair with us, DropCap will represent you for any deals that we may generate as a result of the book fair. So if you have your own agent, this might not be the best fit for you. We want to make sure that when our buyers are talking to us and looking at a book at the book fair, when they come back to us and say, I'm interested in this, we can act on that right away. So we will get your agreement up front that DropCap can agent for any deals that we may generate as a result of the fair. So next steps for you if you are interested in sending your book to the book fair with us. And again, this is Frankfurt. So this is taking place October 15th, 15th through 19th, I believe. We will send an email after this masterclass with a link to our book fair application. Or you can go to this link here that will allow you to fill out an application. We're going to be approving those applications on a rolling basis until our deadline of August 22nd. Why do we have an application? So when we're planning our booth, we want to make sure we have a good balance of books. We want to make sure we have fiction, nonfiction, and children's books and young adult books. And we don't want it to be balanced too far in one direction. We have buyers that buy in all different types of genres. So we do have an approval process to make sure the book that is being submitted to go in person fits with the criteria for the types of books that our rights buyers are looking for, that we're going to be meeting with. And we want to make sure that it's of a good quality, that there's a print version of that book that we're able to show in the booth. If you only have an ebook and you're not able to get a printed copy of your book, again, this might not be the best fit for you because we want to make sure we're showing a really nice, high quality printed version of your book. Once accepted, we will send you a payment link and our address for you to ship one copy of your book to us. We only need one copy of the book, and that will be consolidated by us and sent to our freight forwarder to get shipped to Germany. So the shipping for you will be domestic. We will do the freight shipping, and that's included in the cost of sending your book to the book fair. The payment is due by August 22nd to secure your spot, and we must receive the books by September 5th. Again, after you're accepted, all of these deadlines, all of these instructions will be included in our follow-up email, so don't worry about keeping too much track of those right now. I just wanted to give everyone kind of an overview of the process. So I think I did good on time. We're about 20 minutes in, so I have about 10 minutes for questions. And I will go through first and see which ones have already been asked. If you have questions, feel free to put them into the chat now, and I will do my best to get to all of them in the next 10 minutes. All right. So Susan said, my book is a self-published middle grade environmental fantasy. Let's see. And can you give an idea how well middle grade is doing with foreign buyers? So that is a good question. I think middle grade is doing really well right now. Honestly, there isn't really any specific genre that I would say is not doing well. There's subgenres that maybe are trending versus not trending. I think in Susan's specific case, environmental fantasy or like cli-fi stuff like that is a trend that we're seeing in fiction, and we're also seeing good sales with middle grade. So I think that's a fine candidate to go to the book fair. But I don't typically say, this genre, like, don't do that unless, like I said, it's too US focused. Because us as the agents, we might have ideas about what's going to work well, but we're always surprised when we go to the book fair when we hear from our rights buyers about what they're looking for. So I would never say don't go to the book fair because XYZ genre is not performing well. We kind of learn about those trends while we're at the book fair and then come back with that knowledge. So we want to present as broad, an idea, as broad of a swath of genres as we can, because trends are just changing all of the time. So Kelly said, my historical novel will be published in January. Okay, so she'll have it on display at the IBPA booth at Frankfurt and have an author Q&A before the fair. Would it be advisable to promote it at Frankfurt through DropCap too? IBPA won't negotiate a contract and it's not an agent. Yes, so we do have, so Kelly's asking if she is sending her book to the Frankfurt Book Fair with IBPA, which is the Independent Publishers Association. Does it make sense to also send it to the book fair with DropCap? We have a great relationship with IBPA, and we have many authors that choose to exhibit in both of our booths. I think it's a great idea because you're increasing your exposure. IBPA is, like she said, is not an agent. So what they'll do, if they have, we always let them know which books are also exhibiting with us. We put little bookmarks in them with our booth number. So if someone sees your book at the IBPA booth, they know where we are if they want to talk about rights, and they can go to us and talk about rights for your book. So it's increasing your exposure. We're communicating with IBPA about any books that we are both bringing to the fair, and I think it can be a great way to to show the rights buyers that, you're part of this trade association, you have an agent. I think it looks very professional. So I think that's a good idea. We do offer a 15% discount on the book fair if you are a member of IBPA. So check your member benefits if you're a member of IBPA, if you want to become a member of IBPA, and just let us know, and we will apply that discount for you when we send you the payment link. So Valentina said, my dream is to attend a book fair one day. Do you think it's worthwhile for an author like me, I have self-published my book, to attend in person? That's a fantastic question that I wanted to address, because my honest answer is that it is typically not going to be advantageous for you as an author to spend the money to attend the book fair yourself. So what we've seen with authors when they attend the book fair is that they're not able to talk to a lot of the decision makers because they don't have the contacts. Many of the major booths, like the big publishers like Penguin Random House and those ones, they will not even let people into the booth that do not already have a meeting. So I've talked to a lot of authors who've gone to the book fair who want to connect with agents or editors, and they're very frustrated by the end because they're getting so many no's because they don't already have those professional connections. They don't have any meetings booked. We're always happy to talk to authors at our booth. So we've had a lot of happy people that are like, oh, thank you, someone's finally talking to me. So I just wouldn't want you to spend the money to travel to Frankfurt, stay at Frankfurt, and go to the book fair. It's a big cost if you don't have very specific ideas and plans of what you're going to get out of the book fair. That being said, Frankfurt attracts a lot of visitors who are not members of the book trade. If you want to go just because you're curious to see what it's like, if you want to feel the energy, if you want to look or walk around and see all the books, there's, I think, 12 halls at Frankfurt. It's huge. There's so many things to see. They do a really fun like cosplay contest for students like on the weekend of the fair. So it can be a great experience, but just make sure you understand why you're going and what you're paying for. If your goal is to get your book in front of rights buyers, it's better to send it with an agency like us than to try to go there and do it yourself, because you're going to have a lot of doors shut, unfortunately, if you're there as an individual author trying to pitch your book without having any meetings. Peter said, please send the name of the hotel where you stay. There are a lot of hotels to choose from at Frankfurt. I'm not going to disclose where the DropCap team stays, but there's many to choose from that are in walking distance to the fair. Again, see my previous comment. Make sure you understand what your goal is. If you're planning to travel there yourself, if it's just to see the fair, feel the energy, great. If you are planning to try to connect with professionals, agents, editors, that can be a lot more difficult. So I just want to caution against spending a ton of money to connect with agents and editors if you don't already have those professional connections. I'm going to look ahead a little bit, make sure I can get to everything. Okay. So James asked, I have a memoir of life in post-war Ireland and London. How well do such memoirs do? That's a really good question. Memoirs can be very tricky. It requires a publisher that works specifically with those types of books. So when we talk about broad appeal versus like niche topics, books with a broad appeal, like self-help, wellness. I don't mean broad and good or bad, just like a lot of people are interested in those topics. Those are going to be much easier to license than a more niche topic about personal experience in a very specific area and time. There are certainly publishers who publish those types of memoirs, they license those types of memoirs, and they do really well. But you're going to be being presented to a smaller pool of rights buyers, and it can take longer to place your book if it's a niche topic or a personal memoir of that nature. So again, it's hard to say objectively how well do such memoirs do. It's really dependent on what rights buyers are looking for. And whenever it's a more niche topic, you're going to be dealing with a smaller subset of rights buyers that are interested. Anthony said, my publisher, who's a client of DropCap, is representing the book for me. How is the process different? So Anthony's saying that his publisher is a DropCap client, and that means it's the publisher is working directly with DropCap. It's going to be up to the publisher if they're participating in Frankfurt, and then we work with the publisher to send on a book list of books to send. So it's a bit more editorialized. If it's going through your publisher, I can't necessarily guarantee that your book is going to be one of those books that is selected to go. I would have to know more information. So why don't we touch base afterwards? I'll be putting my email address up. Anthony, you can send me an email, and we can kind of figure out what to do if you want to work with us directly, or if your publisher will be sending your book. So James said, my book is about a kid from planet coming to Earth. Okay, so YA fiction. Yes, buyers are very interested in YA fiction. Fantasy and YA fiction continues to do really well. Again, like I said with the previous question, we don't typically always know what the major trends are for the season until we're there in person. So there's no reason I would say don't send a book that's YA fiction. It's doing really well. I would send it and see what the response is from the rights buyers. Susan asked which countries are typically buying rights. All countries. So we meet with rights buyers all over the world. We do a lot of business in China, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, India, Malaysia, all of the European countries, Germany, and the like, France, South America, really all over the world. We do Arabic licensing. So there's really no narrow answer to that. It's everywhere, and it depends on what the trends are in particular markets, which books are being bought within each market. Oh, that's a great question. So Whitney asked, I've talked a lot about business and wellness. How do novels compare? So I mentioned business and wellness because nonfiction books do typically license more quickly. There's a lot of demand, especially in what I would consider like growing markets like China and India, where they have a lot of people and not a lot of their own authors. Their publishing industry is less mature than say like US or UK or Germany. So they're licensing a lot of content, and those types of books, like the nonfiction books, are, they kind of snap them up as, they might even just look at the title and be like, that sounds interesting, I'm going to license it. So those types of books can be licensed really quickly. Novels we do really well with. We have a great fiction licensing program. However, it can take longer to license a fiction book like a novel. A publisher is going to spend usually more time planning the acquisition. It's going to have more competition sometimes, whether that's from authors in that publisher's market or from other US language authors that the publisher is being pitched. So novels also do well. Like I said, in our booth, we like to have a good balance of children's, YA, adult fiction, and adult nonfiction. But it is typically going to take longer to license a novel and get it placed with the right publisher. That being said, fiction typically comes with a higher advance than nonfiction. So the nonfiction may license faster, but the fiction, when it is placed, will typically command a higher advance. So that's kind of the trade-off. So Renee said, I have a 7th edition grant writing book that won an Axum Award for the 5th edition. So I think the question here is, does the award still apply even though she's on the 7th edition? I would say yes. Like typically when we're presenting books, we consolidate the listing with the multiple editions. So if you're on the 7th edition, we might note that, here's the information for the previous editions, but the awards information, all of, sales history, that's all going to be part of the same listing. So I think that's fine. I would still highlight that award, even though it was for the previous edition. All right, so we're at the 32-minute mark here. So we did pretty good, and I got through all the questions, which I'm really excited about. I'm going to pop my email address up on the screen so that you can see it. There we go. So it's lindsay@dropcap.com. If you have any questions following this masterclass and you'd like to send me an email, please feel free. We're happy to, answer anything you have. I know it's a big investment deciding to go to the book fair, to have your book at the book fair. So we want to make sure you're comfortable with that investment and that we answer any questions that you have. We would love to have your books with us. We always have a great time at the book fair, and we always get a lot of business from it. So it's a great opportunity for you as an author to get that exposure. I've been in self-publishing for many years, and honestly, what we do for the book fairs is one of the highest value marketing services that I've seen in my career. And I'm trying not to be biased with that, but it truly is. You're getting real people in front of your book in front of real people, which is just always the hardest thing to do. So highly recommend it if your book fits into the criteria that we talked about, and we would love to have you with us. So thank you. And again, feel free to send any questions. Have a good day.